Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.
Hey everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Elmo's World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. 3, okay. Welcome to Elmo's World Podcast. This is Elmo Odor Jr., your host, and I have the awesome privilege to talk to Brandon Gruber. He is 31 years old. He's a landlord in Kingston, New York. And he graduated from Kingston Highschool, and he would like to talk about Black Lives Matter. And I can say that this guy is a jack of all trades, and whatever topic we would talk about right now, I'm sure that he would have a lot to say. So Brandon, I would like you to introduce yourself and answer the question after that. Do you think the Black Lives Matter movement is racist?
Do I think the Black Lives Matter movement is racist? No. I think that the Black Lives Matter movement, well, in America, there's been, a long history of systemic racism, and the evolution of that has gotten to us to where we are, where it's still going on. Police brutality, the whole 9 yards, the George Floyd, all of the protests and things. If you look at the name Black Lives Matter, the reason that name is the way that it is because in this country, America, where I'm from, Black lives often don't matter. And so when you get counter arguments to this that say all lives matter, well, of course all lives matter. It's Black Lives Matter is not refuting white lives. It's insisting that Black lives also matter. And so in that way, I think it almost can't be racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so. But for example, if you turn the narrative around and say white Americans would say white lives matter, but anyone from the black community would automatically push it as something racist. And so why can't they do that on the other way around when you say that Black Lives Matter, or that the black community should be treated specially, or a lot of Americans would say that that's just cultural appropriation, and it's nothing more than an excuse to loot, for a money grabbing movement. How would you respond to those accusations?
Well, the way that I would respond is to say that the power, it's about power. There's a power differential in America, and there has been since its founding and since before that. And so when you say Black Lives Matter, like I said, it's because in this country, Black lives often don't matter. When you say white lives matter, they already have mattered far more than so for instance, if we look at statistical data, you know, black men are shot and killed far more than white men. Even, you know, when you adjust for population, 13%, black people make 13% of the population, black men make up 6% of the population. Even when you adjust for the population difference, the per capita, they're still targeted for being killed, for being beaten, for being jailed. So if it were the other way around, if black people have been oppressing white people for the last 400 years, and then it was Black Lives Matter, then I think it would be more unacceptable. But because of the power dynamics, that the oppression of, and it's not just about race, mind, but I think that, you know, I think that because of the power, then we already know that white lives matter because they have white families have the most money. I forget the statistic, but it would be something like 20, 30, maybe more than that years, maybe 100 years, something like that, for the average black family in America to get to the average wealth of the average white family. And this is because of generational inequality, and you know, and so I think that it's sort of a cop out when white people in America do that. White lives matter too. Yes, but it's not really the same thing because white people haven't been oppressed. They weren't enslaved. They didn't have to go through Jim Crow laws. You know, they didn't get redlined. They don't get turned down for jobs. They don't get followed in the stores. When they get pulled over by the police, the police treat them with kid gloves oftentimes, although poor white people get the boot too. But I think it's different because of that, because of power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for example, a lot of arguments have been that so far America has become one of the most countries where equality and equity have actually been on the front lines of government policies. For example, America has black senators, black judges, black colleges, and a lot of the movements that or policies and regulations in America have actually shown that there is not much racism in America anymore, and whatever suffering or poverty that black people suffer in a proportional way, more white Americans are actually in the same category when it comes to income.
Well, I would push back just a little because like generational wealth, right? If you take someone and you enslave them, then you free them and you don't let them work, then you let them work and sometime, and then you pay them less, so black people are more free now than they ever have been in this country. But these things carry over generation to generation. So it's not just about how much, is a black person working at a job making the same money as a white person if they both do the same kind of job. It's also about wealth accumulation through generations, through families. So I'm not sure that, and then also racism absolutely does exist in this country still, not just in the hearts and minds of some individuals, because of course that's always going to be the case. You can never truly defeat racism, but we've changed some things, but we still have a long way to go, because the systemic systems that allowed for that keep black and brown people down, predominantly black and brown people, but poor people in general, these systems are still in place. And this isn't just about racism. This is also about money. It's about poverty. It's about the capitalism, really. It's if you can keep, if you're at the top, you want to keep all the money, you want to keep sucking it out from the people at the bottom, and the people at the bottom can't get a break, and there's a racial element in there. And just because there are a few black senators and black judges, I mean, that doesn't negate the for instance, the fact that black people are arrested 4 times more than white people. That doesn't negate the fact that I think it was Washington, D.C. There was a study that during the day, black people are pulled over more. During the night, they're not, when you can't determine the race. These things are, it starts, there are individual people who are racist, and that's a spectrum, but then there's a system that sort of keeps that in place, and it's tied to economics. It's tied to the power structure. It's tied to keeping the downtrodden. When the police and the justice system writ large constantly targets black men, you talk about families. Well, if you take away black fathers and you put them in the prison system, then it becomes tough. If you keep black people, if you make, again, generational wealth. I'm not talking about, it's hard to accumulate wealth when you're constantly being oppressed. When you're constantly behind. So it's not about work ethics. You can say, okay, yeah, there are some gangs and some people, fine, but there's a ton of hardworking black people who also are stuck, and it's hard for them. And so I don't know that, I really don't think that it's about hard work as much as it is about about taking responsibility and working hard, as with anybody should be doing that. But if you're at a disadvantage from the system to begin with, then that makes it that much more difficult to compete and to rise up through to gain wealth, status, whatever. So I don't think that it's that, I don't think it's a lot of black people not working, because there's plenty of black people who work a lot harder than me, you know what I mean? Harkening back to why I support the Black Lives Matter movement, I think that this is multifaceted. You have to change the culture, and you have to change the laws. So the movement is helping, we hope, to change the culture, and through that motivate the legislators to change the laws to make policing more fair, to hold them to higher account, so that when they murder a black person in cold blood, that they don't get off, that they go to jail like anybody else. And then, beyond that, again, the economic stuff, just raising the floor up for everybody, making sure that everybody's got free health, free health care, making sure that everybody has the same access to education, just making the same equality of opportunity for everyone. Generally speaking, that's the path forward. Culture, policy, you gotta do both of these things, and policy. The politicians will only change things if we stand up and demand it. And that's what this is. This is like during the Civil Rights Act, or the Civil Rights Movement, excuse me. People were asking nicely to be treated fairly back then too, and it didn't quite work. And it took a little bit of chaos, and then progress was made. I remember, so this is, there's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the message of peace, and Malcolm X was a bit more militant. And I remember a quote, I'm going to paraphrase him because I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, he was being interviewed. He said, I didn't go, Mrs. Malcolm X, talking about MLK. I didn't go to Selma to make Dr. King's job more difficult. I really thought that if I went there, that I would make his job easier, because if they, and this is back in the 60s, they being the whites, if they saw the alternative being Malcolm X's militancy, that they would be more receptive to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of peace. And so I think that that's what we need here, is that when I had the, I don't know if I want to call it a fortune, I watched through Unicorn Riot, what happened in Minneapolis, the first 3 nights. And I think that, you know, those riots and everything, that the youth of Minneapolis was fed up. Some of the youth was tired. The Black Lives Matter movement was asking nicely. Colin Kaepernick was trying to make awareness, and they fired him. They said, you play football, don't speak, you know, about this. And some of the black youth in Minneapolis was tired of it and fed up, because they're watching their people die, and so they, you know, they started to break things and set it on fire. And now we have not just a national movement, but a worldwide movement. And in a way, they lit a fire in the hearts of all of us, or many of us anyhow. People in Syria drew murals of George Floyd in solidarity. You know what I mean? I think that a little bit of chaos is necessary to bring us peace. But the Black Lives Matter movement, generally speaking, 99% of it, all of it really is peaceful. And then you have a few agitators. It only takes a few people to break buildings and set them on fire. You know, I try to understand the people who do it. You know what I mean? Not there's opportunists, of course, but I mean the predominantly young Black men and women who see no recourse. They ask nicely, please stop killing us indiscriminately. That doesn't work. They write to the politicians. They demonstrate peacefully. This doesn't work. And so from their perspective, I can't speak for them, obviously, but I can try to understand, you know, if that they're fed up, that they don't know what to do. And I don't agree with rioting or looting or setting fires or anything, but you know, the frank reality is that I believe if Minneapolis was not set on fire, people wouldn't be demonstrating all over the country and all over the world. I think that George Floyd, if it wasn't for the fact that his death was so ugly, and then the reaction of Minneapolis was the way that it was, George Floyd would have just been another dead Black man on the pile. And nothing, you know, at least with this movement, there's an opportunity to change things, to not make it perfect, but to make it a little bit better, to force the politicians to rein the police in, to stop killing us, to stop killing predominantly Black men, but to stop killing innocent Americans, generally speaking.
Okay, cool. So, but then again, I guess that there are what some would say, numbers people would say, collateral damages. For example, a lot of people died during these riots, the chaos that occurred, and would you think that those are that is the price to pay when it comes to change, that there will be chaos, there might be accidents or incidents due to the chaos that occurs. Innocent people, for example, get shot because they get in the riots and all this stuff. What would you say about that?
I would question the numbers, first of all. And second of all, I would say violence begets violence. The police kill innocent people. It's only a matter of time. This isn't, is it moral or not? This is an inevitability. If the power structure presses too hard on the people will rise and fight back. That's just how it goes. That's human nature. And so the dead bodies, I would wonder how many dead people there are who that Black Lives Matter is responsible for, compared to the police since the Minneapolis, because the police have ran people over with their car. They slammed elderly men to the ground. Right now in Portland, there's secret police basically kidnapping kids and throwing them in vans. No judicial process. And just to reiterate the fact that there is racism in this country, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, there's a leaked phone call where he's on the phone with the governor, says, you got to dominate them. You got to dominate them or you're going to look weak. Well, I'm sorry, Donald Trump. Black people have been dominated in this country for a long time. And I think that they're tired of it. And I think that he wants to press on and try to put out these fires with force. And I don't think that that's the way to go. He wanted to take a photo up in front of a church. So he had the police tear gas people. This isn't the way to solve that. You know what I mean?
Okay, so then, for example, what this movement has actually created in America is, in my opinion, it's more of a division between cultures, right? For example, a lot of people from the other parts of America would look at the rioting, they would look at the looting, all the chaos, and see that amidst the pandemic, why do it with the risk of increasing the infection in your country, right? And,
okay. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So first, I just want to say the rioting and the looting, this is overblown. There's not that much of that going on. It started out that way in Minneapolis. There's been some of that that's gone on. Also, there's been proof of cops in street clothes smashing windows, false flag type stuff to make the Black Lives Matter look more violent than it is. If you turn on Fox News, all they show you is the fires and people on cop cars. They don't show you the way more evidence that exists of peaceful demonstrations, of chants, of singing, of praying. So first, I just want to nix that the rioting and the looting and the vandalism is not as widespread as it's portrayed. And what was the actual question? I'm sorry. Oh, about the pandemic. Why do it during a pandemic? Well, I don't. It's not. Well, when's the right time to do it? It's not. Should we wait till after the pandemic? The thing is these things. It's not. Somebody didn't plan this. You know what I mean? This isn't like a central organization that decided that they were going to start these movements throughout history across the world. They all happened organically. Okay, and George Floyd's ugly death, murder, was so jarring to people that they said F this, basically. And you know what, they'll go and also you see people wearing masks. You look at the MAGA guys, the Trump supporters going and trying to protect the statues. None of them are wearing masks. You look at a Black Lives Matter movement, all of them are wearing masks. Now, they're not social distancing, but this is about something bigger than the pandemic for a lot of people. This is about true justice and equality that people hope that they can, that they can make things a little bit better, and that can last for their son or their grandson, so that hopefully their son or their grandson isn't another George Floyd. And so compared to a pandemic, police brutality is a pandemic in and of itself, so I understand people's reticence for this to be happening during the worst pandemic in 100 years since the Spanish flu. But this is organic, and people have made the call that the fight for justice and equality is so important that they'll go out there and be as safe as they can, but they have to go out there and they have to show the power structure that enough is enough. Enough is enough here. You can't keep killing people, innocent people, and get away with it.
Okay, so what you're saying to me is that the Black Lives Matter movement was inevitable. Pandemic or no pandemic, it had to happen, and it had to go on, right? But then, okay? Then the question is, for example, now that America is the number one country with the most cases of COVID, how would you solve this? How would the problem become now that even the country is in more division and in more chaotic than before?
Well, the way to solve the pandemic, this is a tough thing anyway. I'm not an epidemiologist. Like I said, I have no expertise, but the first thing would have been preparation. In 2017 or 2018, Donald Trump dissolved the pandemic response team that Barack Obama had set up. Having that in place might have helped us prepare. Closing down, Donald Trump brags about closing down the borders, but he told people, and the Republican Party, it's not just Donald Trump, the entire Republican Party and the Republican propaganda machine, where Fox News is chief propagandist there, told people it's not a big deal, don't worry about it. They didn't react to it soon enough. They didn't make enough masks. They didn't make enough ventilators. They didn't start working on the vaccine or the ways to treat it nearly early enough. And the reason that the numbers are so high in this country is because Donald Trump has failed in such a spectacular fashion that it's almost beyond belief. It's almost, if you put a child in front of the country, they would have done a better job. You know what I mean? So a lot of this could have been mitigated with some preparation. But then we're here. So now we're opening things up again. Well, that has its own issues because we opened things up. Disney World's opened up. Vegas is opened up. Restaurants and bars in different places are opening. This is going to spread the virus too. So it's true that the marching in the streets during a pandemic is probably going to increase the amount of cases and indeed may cause more deaths. But the overall governance of this has been a complete disaster, a complete failure. And I think that's where you get 140,000 deaths in this country. I think that's where you get,
I see.
I think that's where you get
then,
where we are.
For example, how would you vote in the next election? Because it seems to me that Biden is a candidate by which it's simply that he's someone who you would vote compared to Trump, but nobody actually wants Biden as president if there was a better candidate that could beat Trump. How would you vote?
There was a better, by the way, and his name was Bernie Sanders. I was a Bernie Sanders. I still like Bernie Sanders. As far as Joe Biden is concerned, I don't like him very much because of his policies. We can get into different racial things with him too. He wrote the crime bill in the 90s that put a lot of black and brown people in jail. So, and then the Supreme Court, he humiliated Anita Hill, black woman, along with racist Republican. He worked with Strom Thurmond back in the 70s, who was a segregationist. Joe Biden was actually in favor of segregated school buses. So there's a lot of reasons to dislike Joe Biden. But if you look at, I don't think that Joe Biden would seek to dominate the police in the way that he's done, in the way that Trump has done. And then if you like for climate, for instance, so long story short, Joe Biden is better on a lot of policies, and I think that that's the easy choice if you care about climate, if you care about equality, if you care about economics.
Okay, then
you suck it up and you vote for Joe Biden.
Isn't that a problem in the U.S. when it comes to how you choose your leaders? Because it seems that you're voting
Absolutely.
Biden because you simply hate Trump and you do not want Trump. So
no, it's not. No. It's not because I hate Trump. It's because Trump has worse policy positions, and Biden would have better policy positions, which would lead to slightly better materialistic consequences for people. It's not because I hate Trump. It's because Biden would just do a better job at managing the country. He wouldn't do as good a job as Bernie Sanders, in my opinion. Not nearly. He's a disaster in a lot of ways. He's a half-step kind of guy. But
yeah,
Donald Trump
that
is
was
leading
my
this place
point
to
was
ruin.
that in America, you don't choose a candidate that you really want. No, you choose a candidate that can win, which is that could be more closer to how you want it, how you want things to happen, right? And
that's a problem with American electoral politics, to be sure, is that you get to choose between A and B. In places like Britain, there's I don't know how many parties. There's a lot more than two. A lot of countries have democracies have a lot more than two candidates to choose from, and this is a big problem. This is part of corruption. The rub, the thing is, if the Republicans and the Democrats, the establishment, Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment, they're kind of on the same team because they're all owned by the oligarchs, by the rich people who bribe them, legally bribe them. And so they make it impossible for a third party to come up. And that keeps this power structure stable. And then you go to the voting booth and you pick,
do you think
candidate
that
A who you don't like,
America
or candidate B who
continues
you don't
this
like.
system, nothing will change, and it's just that either the power just switches places, or that someday America will decide that let's leave this crooked system and be able to actually have a proper democracy where every individual's preferred leader would be the one they have to choose, and not someone who they can settle for. Do you think that's something that could happen in America someday?
Absolutely. I think that's something that could happen. There's a lot of things that could happen. This country is in flux right now. We could bounce back from where we are and become a better democracy, like you're saying. We could keep going back and forth between Republican, Democrat, but except that Trump kind of changed the game by being like he is, and to that end, we could also devolve into a full fascistic state. I mean, the structures that the democratic institutions in this country have been being hacked away for a very long time, for many decades. And for instance, the National Security Agency, there's a Fourth Amendment in this country, no illegal searches and seizures. Well, that doesn't exist anymore because the NSA can spy on all our phones if they want, and they do. And that's just a for instance, you know what I mean? So, but if we can, like, as a people, as a movement, this Black Lives Matter movement, other types of movements all together, peacefully motivate the politicians, replace the politicians with better ones, and design better policy positions, then we can get that that better version of democracy. But it starts really with ending corruption. It starts with, you can't have millionaires and billionaires funding campaigns, because the politician who gets in owes them a favor, and then that's what happens. They get the favor then. In this country, the last several, the rich people win every single policy position they want, and the poor and middle class lose every single policy position.
I think that this is why you chose Bernie, because Bernie is a very, very Bernie's ideas are very, very on the left, which favors those who are in the low income or middle class income, compared to those politicians who prefer capitalist goals, neoliberalism. And why do you think that more being on the left could actually be more beneficial to America?
Well, I think that what we're doing now is clearly not working. The Republican Party for the last 40 years, this country, the Overton window, you're familiar with that term? The political landscape of this country has shifted to the right over a period of many years, and then Donald Trump shifted it further to the right. And so the center in America is more center right than it is true center, if you look at the left right, the traditional thing. So we need to kind of shift it back. A broader answer to that is that I'm not a socialist. I'm a social democrat, which is, to say that I believe in social policies that, will elevate the people. I think that even if you don't care about people, all you care about is results, all you care about is money, we shouldn't arrest so many people for nonviolent offenses, so then we can have more workers. We should make college tuition free, so that we can have more skilled laborers and compete in the global marketplace. We should have we should have free health care, so that if people get sick, they don't go bankrupt. You ask, people in Canada, the Norwegian countries, they look at us like, what? Somebody goes bankrupt because they got sick? Happens all the time in this country. These things end up making us less competitive economically, and it's obviously completely immoral to just allow people to die, to have them, and so I think that the left has a better answer for that than the right. The right says, suck it up and move on, and let's carry on, business as usual. The left says, no, let's change things so that they operate a little bit more efficiently, and also we save lives and preserve human dignity.
Okay, then I guess that if that can't happen democratically, where the capitalists will always dominate them because they control the system, they control how it happens, then if ever that America wishes that social policies like free healthcare or free college would work, that would have to require the people itself to have a movement that would be very socialist, right? Or is that that's something that is unnecessary and we could actually work it out in a democratic way?
Well, I think that it requires a movement of many people to change the politicians, to bend the politicians to the people's will. And as far as socialism is concerned, no, and I'm sure are aware that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the civil rights movement, a lot of socialists and communists joined in that cause because it was also about an economic thing. So I don't, I don't know if socialism is a taboo word in the Philippines or not, but it certainly is here because of the Cold War and all of that. But, I'm not a socialist myself, but, I think that most of them want the same things, I think that, and it requires, like you say, a movement, a big movement to impress upon the power structure that change needs to be had. And not just a change where they offer us a tiny little morsel and they say, there you go. It needs to be a complete systemic change. And I think the only way you get that is through this kind of a movement. You know what I mean?
Okay, then I know a lot of Americans, and there are a lot of them who are very libertarian, right? For example, that government shouldn't be the one to provide you your own happiness. And government should have least involvement in your own affairs, right? If you have to take care of your own. You pay for yourself, you work for yourself, and that's why they attribute that less taxes is better. And that is the problem with being on the left as well, because the more social policies you make, the more taxes there are. So in a way, if you work hard, you're paying for someone who's not working hard and just living off the programs and the benefits of being part of that society. And that's another problem as well.
So I noticed that a lot of libertarians don't mind having a standing army, a fire department, a police department, a national park, postal service. These are all socialist policies. They don't mind paying a little bit of money so that if my house burns down, the fire department, if I can't pay them, well, and they won't put out the fire, maybe your house burns down. The libertarians don't seem to mind that. So they don't mind paying taxes in that way. So it's not a huge leap to say, well, if we add a little more taxes, in fact, it's for instance, with Medicare for all, the math is quite clear. You actually save money. There's studies on this because you don't have to pay a private insurance company, premiums, deductibles, and copays. All that's gone. You get a 2% raise in your taxes, and you actually save money at the end of the year, and everybody is covered. So in that way, according to Ayn Rand libertarian philosophy, well, that's more efficient, at least. But with Medicare for all, you save money on premiums, copays, deductibles, and then you pay 2% more in tax, and you end up saving money after that. So if a libertarian wants to save money, they can save money and help people, even if they don't care about helping people. And if libertarians want no taxes, this is the problem with libertarian ideology, is if they want no taxes at all. You and I, Elmo, we have a dispute. Suppose I want to claim your home. I say your home is my home now. Well, with the government, with the government, and we would go to court, and the courts would say, well, no, that's Elmo's house, so you can't claim that. In a libertarian fantasy land, what ends up happening is we revert back to feudalism, where if I can afford more people, more mercenaries, let's say, If I can afford my own police force and you can't afford as many as I can afford, then I just go take your property and your property is now my property. So we need government for that and for other things.
So I guess that what you're saying is that libertarians or not, we as a society are in one rowboat, and we have to work together to, if we want to society to progress, right? To keep the peace and have just a good life without any of these problems that the government stops or prevents, right?
Yeah, and I also think to the libertarians, to be fair to them, there is such a thing as too big of a government, and that's called totalitarianism. That's called fascism. We don't want that, but we don't want no government, and we don't want no taxes, but we don't want all taxes. You know what I mean? It's not a 0 or 100% thing. We have to find that happy.
Now that America has displayed that there is systemic racism, and we have to do something about it, and we are now facing a virus, a pandemic, but we need to work. As a country, we need to open up, because if I don't die of a virus, I'm gonna die of hunger because I'm not making any money. So now that America is facing these problems, and especially that in the incoming election, it's either Trump or Biden, how would I look forward to a country that just settles for less and has so much problems that they need to face? How would I make this country a better country in my own way?
The Trump's calculus and the Republican and Libertarian calculus is, let's just go back to work and herd immunity. Whoever dies, and that's that. But and turn the economy back on so people can get back to work. What I think the answer is we should, still social distance, still quarantine, still do the masks, and the government ought to give us more stimulus money. In this country, they give away most of that money to the hedge fund managers and to Kanye West, his company Yeezy got $5 million. Why? What I mean, a lot of this money is just being mismanaged. Some of these the mega churches that make millions or billions of dollars, they got money. How come they got money and not nurses? How come the teachers didn't get money? How come working people aren't getting taken care of, but all of the rich and powerful people are, keep getting richer and more powerful? That's just everybody. Yes, just that the government ideally is there to not oversee us as such, but to be there as to help us when we need it. Otherwise, what's the point of a government? During a pandemic like this, during the Spanish flu, they did some, and this is what it's about. If we just send people back to work without actually addressing the pandemic, way more people are going to, instead of giving the money away to rich people who don't need it.
One last question, and I'm gonna have to thank you so much for coming on here, Brandon. As an individual in this global world where we are facing a pandemic, how would you make a difference? How would you make a good difference?
Well, I hope to engage more in these protests. I've gone out there a number of times, be in another body, showing the power structure that we the people stand together in the long term. I like to write, so I hope to write a book. Voting makes a little bit of a difference. Activism. I want to do activism. You know what I mean? And I'm not doing it for that, truth be told. I've been caught up with a lot of life stuff. So that's that's a goal of mine, to be more active, and to be another person that's helping to change things in a similar way to you. You've got this podcast where you speak to all sorts of different people, and you change minds and at least maybe bring people together. And I think the more that everybody does a little bit extra, a little bit more for the other person, and not just for ourselves, not just the libertarian, it's only me, but also help your fellow man and your fellow woman. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think that's how we make this world a better place.
So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.
It used to be hard to find the exact auto parts you needed, and that meant spending a lot of time at swap meets. It's a different game now when you can order exactly what you need from eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts, so you can always find the right fitment. Spend less time searching and more time building with the eBay Motors app, or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.